Good afternoon. Monica Miller here, Legal Director and Senior Counsel for the American Humanist Association. This is Legal Tuesdays, where I answer your questions about separation of church and state. The question I'm going to get to today is from Mark Combs on Facebook, who says, I'm grateful for your efforts and updates on another related topic. Are you monitoring the current status of Project Blitz? I haven't heard anything about that for a while. The answer is yes, we are monitoring Project Blitz, and for those of you who don't know, it is this sort of concerted national effort by Christian nationalists to basically undermine and de-establish the wall of separation between church and state through a series of actions that they are taking on sort of a nationwide front and through the states. So we actually did see a pretty dramatic slowdown of Project Blitz since COVID-19 emerged in March. Those state legislators have been a lot slower in passing legislation because of COVID-19. Nonetheless, and unfortunately, we are still seeing legislation get shoved through state legislatures, including, I think most recently it was Ohio. There might be a few other states, but Ohio was passing legislation similar to legislation in other states, and it involves religious speech in the public school context. Except that it's not real private speech that they're trying to protect, but rather religious endorsement by public schools vis-a-vis students through public speaking at things like graduations, football games, and other situations in which the Supreme Court and lower federal courts have thus far basically held that such speech, when it's religious and at a government function, that everyone is there because the government brought them there. So a football game where a school district, it's part of a school district curriculum or part of a school district program, and a student gets up and delivers a prayer on the school district's loudspeaker while everyone is there as a captive audience. The Supreme Court has said that that is unconstitutional, and that was a 2000s case called Santa Fe versus Doe versus Santa Fe, and it involved a public school football prayer. So Project Blitz is basically trying to chip away at that Santa Fe decision, as well as other lower court federal decisions in which, student speech, when delivered in a captive audience situation, creates a coercive problem for those students who don't want to pray, and also creates an endorsement problem on the government's end because those prayers are interpreted as being stamped with the school district's seal of approval, or with the government seal of approval if it's outside of a school context, when again the student is selected to give a prayer, like a pregame prayer. So the Ohio legislation, and it transcends prayer and transcends football games and graduations. It's actually more encompassing than that, and I think it was intended or under the auspices of trying to have students be encouraged to write about their religious beliefs and so forth in the context of graded work. The Student Religious Liberties Act in Ohio, for instance, it says that directs schools to neither, quote, penalize nor reward students on the basis of their religious speech, and further stipulates that schools must provide opportunities for religious expression, quote, in the same manner and to the same extent as secular speech. And that's a really radical thing of language, because, again, thus far, there is no, that basically chips away at the Establishment Clause, because it basically is trying to say that whenever the school wants to host an event or do something in which students are invited to speak, that if the students want to say something religious, even proselytizing and coercive, that they can use the government's resources and school districts' resources and event and the captive audience that is brought by the government to promote religion. And the purpose of such legislation is obviously intended to tell and encourage students to pray, and that's unconstitutional. So we are watching this legislation pass and unfold kind of across the country, and we are working alongside other groups to monitor Project Blitz and get involved when the time is right. So that is all I have time for today, but I will talk to you on the next episode of Legal Tuesdays.